Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Suzuki. Coming up, we get the latest on the landslide in Tahiti. Also,
if Australia was to become the host, together with the Pacific countries, hopefully they would feel the pressure to deliver.
Kiribati's former president weighs in on Australia's failed bid to host the next climate summit. And
that's what sort of attracts people. It's the culture, the ease of it.
The Cook Islands paddling competition wraps up. We head to Tahiti, where the community are reeling in shock over the lives taken by the recent landslide. I'm joined by our RNZ Pacific correspondent on the French Pacific desk, Patrick de Cloyter. Kia ora, Patrick. What's the latest on the major landslide that struck Tahiti? And I also understand that there's been recent landslips. Where does the death toll stand?
So there's been this major landslide last week in the small town of Tahiti, southeast of the main island of Tahiti. It was a village that was just on the foot of a hill, and a huge part of that hill just fell down under the weight of the water on a number of houses further down. Immediately it was established that there were 8 people, including a 3-year-old girl, who were buried under the debris of their own houses. It took the search and rescue team just one day and one night to finally recover all of these people, but unfortunately there was no survivor. Since then, everyone in the neighborhood has been evacuated. That is, all these people who were residing in houses nearby, and the whole area remains still sealed off because of fears that there would be more landslides coming, all this because of the heavy rains that are pouring down. In fact, there's been more landslides just a few days ago. Other portions of the hill have also collapsed, but this time, fortunately, no one was injured or killed. But here again, more families living in the neighborhood have been evacuated as a safety measure. And of course, the situation is further complicated by this tropical depression that is affecting all of the area, the whole of the Society Islands. That's also where the main island of Tahiti is located.
Could you tell us about the interfaith church service held in Papeete? How many people were there and who attended from Parliament?
Of course, there was a big shock in the whole community, not only in the village, but for the whole of French Polynesia. That's why, in a gesture of solidarity, there's been this interfaith religious service that was held at the weekend in a multi-purpose hall in the capital, Papeete. It's brought together most of the main religious denominations in French Polynesia, but it was also an interfaith gathering in terms of politics because all of the parties and their leaders were represented. Obviously, the president of French Polynesia, Moitai Brotherson, his cabinet as well, and on the parliamentary level, all parties representing both the majority and the opposition. During this very emotional ceremony that lasted about 2 hours, almost 1,000 people from all walks of life, the general public, the emergency people, including the fire service, the volunteers who took part in the search as well, were also there. Obviously, this was to convey a message of compassion, grief, support, and solidarity with the affected families of those who died in particularly horrible circumstances.
I understand there's a judicial inquiry for manslaughter underway. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, this judicial inquiry has been launched just after the initial landslide took place last week. This was on the initiative of the French High Commissioner, Alexandre Rochat. This was to establish what are the exact circumstances that led to the tragedy, whether it's just a weather effect and consequence of the current heavy rains, or whether there were more factors involved that have not transpired yet. Also, this tragedy brings back to the fore the whole system of delivering building permits and zone classification in an area that was particularly prone to this kind of disaster, and if the current rules need to be updated or not in terms of security prerequisites.
And finally, Patrick, has France acknowledged the tragedy?
Amongst the many messages that have poured down since the tragedy, there's been this message from French President Emmanuel Macron, and also another message from his Minister for Overseas, Naima Muchu. At the same time, she also announced the dispatch of a team of geological experts from New Caledonia and mainland France as well. They've already arrived and are working actively on this site, especially to establish the risks of further landslides in this particular area. In fact, they very quickly established that the whole area was still considered as highly unstable.
For the region's climate advocates, Australia's push to host COP was an opportunity to show the world how the climate crisis was affecting Pacific people. Losing the bid to Turkey has been tough to swallow, especially as the world looks set to overshoot its main climate target of limiting the rise in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next decade. Te Wila Fortai spoke to former Kiribati President Anote Tong, a leading voice on climate change, about the region's challenges.
Do you no longer have faith in COP?
I don't think it will deliver on time. There's no significant response. I know there's been a lot of work done, but still not enough. We got to be very brutally realistic that for the Pacific countries like mine, Tuvalu, Kiribati, the Marshall Islands, who are very low-lying, our fate has already been decided. What's already in the atmosphere will continue to drive global temperatures up and will continue to drive sea levels to rise.
So what does that mean? What are you actually looking for then from COP or from these international treaties that we see? What is actually going to make the difference to, say, Kiribati?
I don't think a great deal. I think the science is very clear. By the fourth assessment report, which was released in 2007, the scenario then was that by the end of the century, our islands will become uninhabitable. That has been reviewed by the sixth assessment report released in 2022. Now it's not the end of the century, it would be by 2060. The question is, what can we do to make that change? I don't think we would be in time. I'm part of a climate overshoot commission, which was to avoid overshooting the tipping points, the 1.5. And I said it's already overshot as far as we're concerned, okay? And I think what the global community, the international community, needs to focus on, in our case, is what to do beyond 2060. What happens when our islands get submerged or begin to be unable to sustain life? And so that's not been addressed, I said. I think I recall in the sixth assessment report that there is still time. I think time for most, but not for some. And we are part of the some.
Have you given up on mitigation? Is it now just about adaptation?
I think we must remain consolidated on pushing for mitigation. And I think and definitely this is the reason we continue to push. But the solution of our problem is not in the mitigation. It's about providing adaptation strategies which would ensure that we can remain above the rising seas and the increasing storms. What options are there available for us?
So if we look regionally, one of the biggest players we have is Australia. They didn't secure the bid to be the host of the next COP. What ramifications do you believe that has for Pacific nations? Because, of course, that was going to be a Pacific COP hosted between the Pacific and Australia.
Okay. Well, it would have been nice to have had Australia hosted. That would have been good to show to the rest of the global community what it is that we are struggling with. And hopefully, of course, Australia continues to maybe one of the highest exporters of fossil fuel. And the expectation was that if Australia was to become the host, together with the Pacific countries, hopefully they would feel the pressure to deliver something meaningful to avoid what it is that they're hosting. The whole purpose of hosting is to avert the disaster that is coming.
You've also been critical, though, of Australia continuing to open up mines, for example. So what does the fact that they're not going to be the host now, what does that mean for the bargaining power for Pacific nations to push Australia to be more ambitious in its climate goals? Because really that was the leverage that the Pacific leaders had.
I'd always been hoping that Australia would provide the kind of leadership that we needed. I mean, with Australia providing the leadership at the international level as part of the Pacific region, as part of the Pacific family, I believe we would have been more effective in influencing the international position on climate change. Hopefully, there's still that moral understanding. I think now we have the International Court of Justice advisory opinion that is in our favor. Previously, we had come from the moral high ground. Now we have some legal backing.
In regards to Australia, Do you think it's worthy to sort of speak for Pacific nations on the issue of climate justice and climate change?
No, I've always said that with the way that Australia is not only exporting high volumes of fossil fuel, but also providing huge subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. It's tens of billions of dollars on an annual basis. The hope is that Australia will find some way to win itself. And I think I've seen somewhere that Australia now has a roadmap. I remember talking to the Australian ministers, asking, do you have a roadmap to transition away from fossil fuel? And I think they are doing it in terms of their own domestic emissions, but they're not winning away, nor really trying to win themselves away from economic dependence on the export of fossil fuel. They need to do that.
In the Cook Islands has been another successful Matson Waka Eva event in Rarotonga. Over 700 paddlers from around the world travel to Rarotonga to participate in the biggest week of paddling on their sporting calendar. The week saw record numbers of canoes on the water throughout the packed 9 days of racing. Tiana Haxton reports.
A Cook Islands paddling coach says the diversity of race categories makes it a popular event for international competitors. From open ocean marathon courses to fast-paced sprints, the event caters to every age group and skill level. Te tupu o Te Manava's Serena Hunter says everyone loves coming to Wakaeva because it offers a bit of everything.
You don't really get anything like it anywhere else in the world. We had the juniors having their 2 days at Muri, and the oldest paddler was in his 70s, so it's for all ages, and Wakaeva provides a week where the families can come up and have a good time too. So I think that's what sort of attracts people. It's the culture, the ease of it, the week of paddling, festivities, everything that goes with it. So people come back time and time again.
That sense of warmth attracts competitors from all over the world, even as far as the United Kingdom. London-based paddler Jocelyn King has always loved the sport. She now travels the world exploring places to challenge her paddling skills. She told local media her team trains on the River Thames, but nothing compares to racing in the clear turquoise waters of Rarotonga.
We are privileged to be in this sport. We don't do normal holidays, it's paddling holidays, and we've met some great, great friends. Thank you very much for Cook Islands. I mean, I would love to live here. Oh my goodness. Don't send us back home to snow and greyness and darkness. Oh.
For some competitors, it was an emotional homecoming. New Zealand-based Cook Islander Tere Moana Tere was among those securing a title after his team won the Open Men's Round Rarotonga race. The Pineula crew comprised of Cook Islanders, Tahitians, Samoan and New Zealand Māori paddlers. Tere says the competition was intense, with lots of friendly rivalry between the teams taking on the gruelling 34-kilometre race.
And it's good to be back at home. The experience out there was beautiful, hard conditions, but love paddling against the local crews. Got family in there as well, so a little bit of a good rivalry between us.
Tere says the win held special significance for their team, who dedicated the race to the late Romani katoa. The former Oceania Aquatics Vice President was an avid supporter of the Pineula crew.
This race was specially dedicated for Romani. That's the whole reason why we came back, just to do it for him. One of our very best friends, every time we come over, he sponsors us like little things, but always helped us with canoes, helped the community and stuff like that. Helped a lot of boys in our crew as well.
For others, Wakaeva was a chance to deepen bonds with teammates. 14-year-old Alana Puni-Young and her Manukau Outrigger Canoe Club finished first in the J16's race. She says the competition was tough, but the Auckland-based crew of 6 dug deep to secure their win.
Coming first isn't the real big deal for my crew. My crew, we're all about working as a team and trying our hardest. So I'm very proud of my girls. I think we did awesome, considering we're not locals in that. If you just stay motivated and positive, you can push through anything. And that's what my crew did. We put in that mahi and you get that result you want.
From seasoned paddlers to young first-timers, competitors all agree that the community camaraderie is what continues to draw people to Wakaeva each year. And with the competition's 20th anniversary on the horizon, excitement is already building for next year.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā, soifua.